thanks, Kathy. If you could do a roll call, please.
You got it. Saban. Bartleson. Here. Lobes.
Here.
Birdbauer.
Here.
Galogly.
Here.
Shriver.
Here.
Karis.
Here.
Kostecki. Here. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. I see Bill Carroll's here to open us in prayer.
Good evening, everybody. Pray with me. Dear God, I thank you for all of our civil servants. Thank you for their hard work and sacrifice. May you continually bless them, and may you generously give to each of them wise and discerning hearts to skillfully govern the people of our city. I give the mayor, city leaders, staff, and city council wisdom so they may solve problems, distinguish between right and wrong, and bring order, stability, and prosperity to our community. In your name, amen.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it. All right, my friends, anybody got anything for liaisons?
I'll start. First of all, I'd like to blame Public Works because of them, we're here tonight.
Yes, yes.
And they got a good review today, too, which
But,
is, we appreciate that.
but no,
Thank you.
I'm giving it over to Brent. I'll let him talk a little bit about the plowing.
Well, I appreciate that, JR.
Really?
So we, the crew has been out since 8 o'clock last night, so we called them in as soon as things started to transition over. We have had an entire crew, so every single truck that we have, big and small, has been out. I know that it's been a challenge. The snow has been continuous, the snow has been blowing, and I know there's areas that it looks like we have not touched. We have gone through them, and we will continue to go through them. Our goal is by the end of this evening to have everything curb to curb on all streets in the city, so I would just ask for everybody's patience. I know that it's a trying time and it's challenging. You get home from work and, your road's not completely plowed yet. We're doing everything we possibly can, and we will continue to do that. We also have, it looks like another couple inches tomorrow, so we will be back out, and we're going to get the streets clean and keep everybody safe. But just ask everybody's patience, and we are absolutely doing everything we possibly can. Salt, we're still in great shape. We had 400 tons delivered yesterday, so we have more than enough salt. So we're in great shape there.
All right, thanks, Brent. Anything else?
I got something for finance.
Yeah, please.
Yep. Wanted to bring up, back in October, I actually questioned the profitability of all of the events that happened at the Chevron site. And one of those events is Old Canal Days. And what I'd like to bring up to council is that we talk about an agreement with the chamber about Old Canal Days, about some type of graduated sharing of profits for next year and going forward, with the anticipation that if it is as profitable as it was this past year, that they contribute some of that profit towards our overtime costs, and have it something like, if they make over 50,000, or make 50,000, it's all theirs. If it's, say, 75,000, they share half of that to cover our overtime, and so on and so forth until it's covered. The way I look at it is, want to discuss it at the council. When we were tasked with the budget this year, we were told that, we need to find ways to either raise revenue or cut costs, and I think this is one of the things that is a doable thing. So I just wanted to bring it up and see if we can talk about it. Correct me if I'm wrong, any agreement with them has expired, Ben? Or
Yeah,
need
Mayor,
to negotiate a new one?
we don't really have necessarily an agreement. I guess we've done a couple understandings. If I could tell you, this is a community event that the Chamber and the city have partnered on for a long time, 50 years, I believe now or more. And right now, there's a committee that really kind of decides most of what activities are and the organization of it. And the Chamber runs that, really. They have a staff person that kind of does it. Many of our staff and myself do also serve on it. But the city does budget funds every year for site improvements and some of the expenses, tent rentals, fireworks, and things like that. And then the event makes revenues, whether it's the carnival, whether it's the beer tent, sponsorships. And then last year, I think, someone asked about the profit and loss statement. We shared it back in the fall, that it was successful. And that was the most successful event we've ever had.
Right.
We've never made money like that before. So I did discuss with Tom, the chair of the chamber, about what's our understanding for this year, but nothing has been, stated, or we don't have an agreement, I guess, for this year. My intention was that we were just going to do it the same way we've done it this year, but.
Could we then just take those discussions you've had and introduce the concept of a graduated reimbursement above a certain income level?
I have had that conversation with them, but I mean, again, we haven't made any decisions on what it would be or could be, and I guess it depends on what the direction of the mayor and council is in regards to what you want me to take back with them, or I can meet with them.
Well, I would suggest as a start, that we can discuss, with the council, that say, if they make 50,000, it's all theirs. If they make anything over 50,000, it becomes a sharing of their profit.
Gradually, though.
Yes,
Yeah.
gradually.
And
And you
yeah, I
can
mean-
say, so anywhere from 50 to 75,000, so the next 25,000, they would share half of that back to the city. And if they go from 75 to 100, they would share half of that as well.
With the
Up
funds
to,
only,
up to not to exceed covering our overtime costs for the police. I'm not out to say we need to make a profit and, as much as they make, we make. It's just I'm looking at a way to possibly cover our overtime costs. I know we have numbers budgeted for it. I believe last year it was approximately half of that. So, I mean, it's not as bad as what everybody may think. But still, I think, we're on the hook for the expenses. If, say, for example, if it rains every day and the event tanks, we're on the hook for several, dollars in costs. And I think we should also be on the hook for any profit, sharing of the profit. So that's my thoughts. I don't know how everybody else feels.
I would agree, because I remember you talking about that, because we talked about, I think it had to do with like, what, Haunted House came to us about parking.
It was
at the same time
Oktoberfest, Haunted
came to
House.
us.
There were several
I remember
events.
that. Yeah, it was like September, October.
right.
But what if we just, like, if you've already been talking to people, instead of like having us like hanging over you, what if you just continue those talks and introduce the idea about the, like, graduated,
Sharing,
the
sharing
very
revenue.
shallow graduated.
Profit sharing,
increase.
however you want to call it.
Why can't we just give them a bill? Why do we have to have a
Well,
formula or
in previous
graduated-
years, my understanding, I mean, I haven't been through all the Old Canal days, but certainly been more involved in the more recent ones, where my understanding was that was our contribution to the event, right? This is a community event.
I'm not saying
It's not just the chamber, right? The Main Street makes money, the Sister Cities makes money, Women's Club makes money. These are all good philanthropic, that's not the right word, but
Philanthropic.
charitable organizations that do things for our community. And so I think when I did bring that up to them, after Larry had asked last year, we had discussed it a little bit again this year, was that they felt, well, we may have to charge some of those other groups a little money to help cover some of these costs, so they weren't just gonna absorb it all. And I think people maybe not realize that the chamber, it was on life support at one time, a few years when I first got here, and I think it's doing a great job now, and they've had the ability to afford an executive director now because they made some decent dollars. And, I understand the ask. It's it's not a nominal amount. It is a significant amount, but it's not significant in the wares of our overall budget. So, and when
And I'm not asking for 100% back, because
Yeah.
it is, we are dealing
You're
with
talking
charity.
about $20,000 to $25,000 in overtime, and half of that's about police, half of that's about public works. When Oktoberfest came, they provided their own public works of sorts and handled garbage their own, and so they only got billed for the public safety for police, and so there was only 10. So there are other mechanisms that the committee could do to try to offset those dollars, but I think it was a great event where it was, very successful. I'm glad we had the manning. I just hate to be a detriment on the committee
I just
with
think,
new
I
expense.
think if we could set a standard going forward, it's not meant to be a detriment. However, I do agree that if there's a certain profit margin, that we should have some kind of formula or table that shows a gradual increase in reimbursement for PW or PD. And, you know, if it's under a certain amount, there's no reimbursement at all. If there's a loss, obviously there's no reimbursement. But I do think there needs to be some kind of standard going forward that we can apply to all events that would happen down there.
I think
See,
they're
that's where this is where I think it's a little different, is because I remember we asked Renee and Larry to look into how do we deal with the Chevron property for events, right? Do we have is there a fee? Is it worth charging somebody a fee? But there's a difference between when Hell's Gate, who's a, for-profit organization, it's a business, right? That's, I have no problem, talking about having a fee for that. Does that make sense, right? They're using the overflow parking. Or we looked at, I know we talked a little bit about the Oktoberfest. It was very fun. They did lose $25,000, right? So I know more than me have run events. They're hard, and they don't always make money. In fact, that they usually break even. So they're a lot of work. So that's fine. So that comes down to, well, should we be charging people like Tangled Roots a fee to use the field? It's like, dude, they don't even make any money as it is. As fun as it was, and I thought it was a great draw, and the community enjoyed it, charging just a fee to use the property seems, I don't know. But I never really heard any feedback yet from you guys, any investigations. But when it comes to Old Canal Days, that one is unique. And I think it's unique in the sense that we have been partnering, it's been a city event for 50 years. And as far as I can recall, we've always covered the overtime. It's been our contribution. Whereas like Homer, Glen, they budget $150,000 for their Homer Fest. That's just something they understand and put money towards. That's the only city I know you probably have more experience with Joliet, Ben, about if they budget things for stuff. But I think, when we always donated the overtime, that was our contribution from the city. I never felt like that was wrong or problematic, but it doesn't mean I would do it for every event. I know that Zirko Productions was looking at doing a monthly flea market out there. That's great. That totally makes sense to have a fee for them, right? But again, the Old Canal Days thing seemed different to me, simply because of, its history, it's the fact that it takes into account all sorts of organizations, and as Ben mentioned earlier, they are able to make money too. And instead of like burdening the chamber further with like, okay, well, if we have to pay, then we have to have a graduated fee for the women's club and for, the Asiago folks and all those kind of things. It's like, it's hard enough to run the event. I'm really not worried about nickel and diming them. For me, my feeling on it is, I don't really mind the contribution for the overtime for Old Canal Days. As far as other events, I think as we move forward and look towards the future with whether they're private events like Tangled Roots or the Zirko Productions, if that were to ever materialize, or do we look at events like the Oktoberfest, which I think had a lot of value. What sort of fees do we charge, if anything, right? Or is that where we have this graduated idea? I had just first heard of that just before we came in here. Ben mentioned that that was something that was spoken of, and that was interesting. I hadn't thought about doing a graduated fee for numbers as they go up. But for me personally, as far as Old Canal Days goes, I always just see that as the city's contribution. Either other organizations will throw money at it, but we can either write them a check, because, it seems like the city should have some help with it, or, just give them the overtime and we don't have to write a check. There's another way of looking at it as well.
And I agree with that, because they do pay for, Christina, they do pay other expenses that the city incurs. They do reimburse them for that. The only thing that the chamber does not is the overtime. Now, last year, did they make a little bit more profit, obviously, than previous years? Yes, but it was also the first event in 2 years that everybody got to. And so, I remember the first day of being there, I was overwhelmed, like, holy cow. is it gonna be that this year? You know, was it that way 2 years ago when they had the Battle of the Bands and they lost $100,000? No. So I, as a chamber member and an advocate of a lot of chambers, and I've been on several boards of them, I think it's something that the city could contribute, because most cities do something to help the chambers out. And they've all been, floundering the last couple of years because all of their events are canceled, all their network is canceled, half of their businesses have gone out of business. So I think that this would be a really bad year to all of a sudden go, okay, well, now you made money last year, so this year, we're gonna hit you with the overtime that we've been giving you the last 50 years.
No, I would disagree with that, that if they're at record profit, they should share something back to the city.
The thing is, we don't know if they're going to have that good of a.
That's why it's a graduated thing.
Yeah.
So, if they lose money, we lose money. If they make money, we should make money. Not so much make money, but cover some of our additional costs that we haven't in the past.
I'm confused about that part. You're telling me our history is 20 to 25,000 is what we end up donating on, but why do we budget 45,000 when we're only giving them 20 to 25,000 in overtime?
So the difference is, we budget about 35,000 for overtime for all events in the city, car shows and things like that. There is no mechanism for revenue with car shows, we just eat that 10,000, okay? We have it earmarked for about 25,000 for Old Canal Days for overtime, because we've had a history of hosting it and we know what it kind of costs a man, and so that's separate. Now, there's additional items in the budget, and I think this originally came up at our budget meeting last fall when we started having these conversations. There's a line item in the budget for $45,000 this year. It's been 50 or 55 or 40 or 45, depending on kind of the plans. And that gets paid back. What our kind of premise was that is the event makes revenues, that it covers the expenses, right? So we might spend $20,000 in site improvements, we might spend $10,000 on fireworks, we might help write checks, like the liquor license is the city, so we actually have to buy the alcohol, and then when they sell it and make a profit, they pay us back. So it's a cash flow thing. We've kind of front some of those expenses, and then they pay us back. So, you have to budget for it because it's an expense that we write checks for, but then we have another line
That's what I
item.
say, we're in it together. We
Yeah,
have
this is,
certain costs, they have certain costs. If it rains every day and it's a bust, so be it, and
That's
we-
always been
and
our
we eat the-
understanding, right? We don't
and
have an
we eat the
agreement that
cost.
says that, but that's kind of
Right.
been our, hey, we're all sharing risk in this, and
So there's no agreement, I'm just saying, put an
yeah.
agreement together, leave it to you guys as the staff.
Sure.
If it's agreed upon here by the council,
Okay.
to have some type of graduated sharing of the profit.
And granted, it would be different for a for-profit organization like
Yeah.
Haunted House, Oktoberfest.
Because part of the other piece of this puzzle too is to talk about the other events like those, to have an event fee, either yes or no, but that's another thing that we talked about back in October
Yeah.
that I would want to bring up again before the events start happening again. What type of agreements are we going to put together? Are we going to put an event fee in or not?
the Oak Canal Days is separate, right? And I
Right.
totally,
And
because
I
a
agree
private
that
company
should
would
be
come to
separate.
us and do a lease agreement, and we ask for insurance and all this stuff. Where Oak Canal Days, we're providing insurance, they're doing insurance, it's more of it's a community committee. One thing
Mm-hmm.
that Tom mentioned, he's the new chairman of the board for the chamber, when I first brought this up to him, was like, well, we don't know if it's gonna be that good again. Did we get super lucky because we just came out of COVID? This graduated idea is newer in the last week or so, that maybe I could work something out with them. I think if we set the bar high enough, I think, the only downside to the chamber is they have to be $20,000 more successful just to meet where they were this year, right? So that's a challenge. Now, Annette, the
Sure.
staff is like, hey, we're all to the point where we're moving forward with the event now and getting prepared and doing things, and we just need to know what we're doing so that we can plan better. So, if the consensus is that you want me to go work with them on some kind of tiered approach, I can be as generous as I feel comfortable and just try to say, hey, if you guys make X amount of money, let's cover 25% or whatever. I can come up with a few things. But let's all not forget, Oak Canal Days in particular has an economic impact to the community, okay? People come in, the restaurants downtown are thrilled, they're packed.
Understand.
Stagecoach, Embers, all these places are full, and we're getting a nice sales tax incentive in regards to not just the beer sales and things occurring and food vendors selling things and sharing revenues with the state and us, but the downtown and the restaurants in town, there's also an economic impact that you could attribute to it, so.
One other thing to think about too is that some of those unintended consequences. So a lot of, I believe, the chamber's income that they got last year was because Annette raised a lot of money through donations. If you end up saying, like, it wasn't just like, they didn't have money and then it was all beer sales, right? It was.
Most of it's sponsorships. Yeah,
a
Annette
lot
did a
of
great job
sponsorship
getting
money.
new sponsors.
So then what you end up doing is saying, if Annette raises, let's say our threshold is $40,000,
whatever,
right?
yeah.
At 40, if you guys make more than 40K, we want a taste of it.
Yeah.
And Annette raises $40,000, and it's like, well, what's the sense in me calling
No
for more sponsorships?
incentive to go on, I get it, yeah.
Right,
it's
so you
interesting.
do kind of, that is an unintended consequence.
Also, okay, so they make 40,000, and then they make 50,000, so at 50,000 to 10,000, we want you guys to pay 10% of our overtime. Is it really worth the $2,000 to make a big, animosity between us and the chamber for a small percentage? And I was gonna say that earlier, then they'll just make less money if you're gonna turn it over. I mean, it's like, you need to pay taxes. just make less
Didn't
money.
we
Oh, I'm
have some
saying-
prior discussions about potentially charging a parking fee that could offset some of the city's expenses for the
That came up
events?
under Oktoberfest, it didn't come up under O Canal Days. I think the new site and location bodes well to the event's success. I don't know if you start trying to charge parking, people are gonna go to the neighborhoods maybe, so I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess you could come up with other revenue sources to help fill the gap. But for the most part, the event is made whole on sponsorships, right? I mean, any event organizer will tell you that. I mean, the beer sales brings you some, the carnival shares. Now, I feel like the city's in a better position today than it was 5 years ago. We used to not get necessarily all of the profits, or we got 25% of the carnival, and so it is more equitable today than it's ever been. And I'm thrilled as a staffer to have someone like the chamber lead the conversation, and I just attend the meetings, right? I don't, and participate. So for me, it's a great benefit that the chamber does own this. I would never want it to make it more detrimental where they don't want to host it, and I don't think they would. They obviously do a good job with it. I think everybody enjoys it. I think there's a lot of community pride with it, and I think it helps the chamber grow as well. So there's benefits to everyone. It's just, where do you draw those lines? What's the consensus on dollars and cents? We don't have an events policy ordinance or anything like that. This has just been the judgment of probably the administrator of the time over the years, or the committee. Really, the committee ran it. I mean, we haven't been involved as much as we have been in only the last couple of years.
I will say that, that was a huge pain in the ass. It's hard to run a festival, and the first couple years, it was like on us.
Yeah.
Because there was nobody to do it. I don't know if I ever told you guys this, but like my first year as mayor, like right after Old Canal Days, I had to like pretend I got hit by a car. I had to go to Michigan and not take any phone calls. I had to like just lay flat on my back on a sand dune for like 2 days because it was so stressful. And that whole festival was on us. And like when I think about it now, I don't even have to think about it. I just show up. Right? The value that is brought from the chamber from doing it when there was nobody doing, it was hard to find people to do it. It always sounds like, well, I'll do it for $80,000. It was a fluke, the number. Second off, it's an incredible amount of work. And ultimately, they usually make about 20 grand. And God bless, my mindset, I hear what you're saying, Larry, and I do. And ultimately, it's a council decision. From my take on it is, I'm like, they made $1 million, God bless them, right? And because that just trickles down to, the Sister Cities program, to the, every other group, the Boy Scouts, every other group that's there, that doesn't have to pay anything either. And I know if we start telling the chamber that they gotta share the profit, then they're gonna turn and say, well, okay, we need you guys to share the profit. I think Old Canal Days is really starting to take off. I'd hate to see it, I don't know. I personally don't think it's something that I would screw with at the moment. Maybe we give it another year and see if the last year was a big fluke. And then even when it comes to the other stuff, you know, like, what are we gonna charge? You know, $2,500, $5,000? As soon as you start talking that's a lot of money if you're an event person, right? Is it like, now, I will say it's different with the Zirco production guys, because those guys do make a lot of money, and when I talk to him, it's not unheard of for them to rent out, you know, the fairgrounds and places for, you know, $10,000. Because they're not bringing in carnivals, they're not bringing in food tents, it's just vendors giving them money to set up a table, right? So it has the ability to be profitable, unlike entertainment festivals, which are, you know, the cost is so many things like tents and all these things, they just really was where the money gets racked up.
All I'm trying to do is just bring up the topic that was open from October.
No, and I appreciate it.
And,
I do
you know, I
appreciate it.
think now, if there's an opportunity to do something, it would be now.
Would it be wise to maybe, since we don't have any policy regarding events, that now's the time?
Well, that's
In
where I'm kind
2022
of coming
to-
from.
It would be hard to,
Policy?
you know, every event is so different, and every revenue stream of any event might be completely different, so, I mean, I guess you could create something with percentages and shared profits, or set a cap that if you make $100,000, you gotta pay us back for anything. I don't know.
Like, I mean, Gallery 7, they do that thing on the Lincoln Landing, right? You know, these guys don't make any money.
Yeah.
What are you gonna charge?
They have 4 nights a year, they have live music on the landing, it's great.
But
Go
I
down there.
appreciate that somebody's out there doing something that brings
Right.
energy to, you know, to the city. And so it gives residents, it's something that it gives to the city and the residents that we don't have to really, you know, the work is not on our shoulders. Because I think the last thing any of us up here want to do is like, all right, we're all in charge of Old Canal Days now, right?
I'm going to Michigan.
January
Yeah, it's like,
9th,
as long as I can run the beer tent.
January 9th through the 12th, don't miss it.
My wife and I put in some volunteer
I
hours.
Yeah.
really do think that we need to have a good talk with Chambers and see what they would even entertain or how they would react to something as what Larry and Mark has brought up. But we got to keep in mind, just like Renee said, this is the first year that people were able to come out and celebrate and just let out their frustration from being, you know, homebound. So I don't know that this is going to happen again, and I think we're discussing it because they did do well, and that's great. And I hope they continue to do more and more every year. But an open communication with the chambers, it can't hurt.
Maybe we set a high bar where if you exceed the revenues you did last year, you pay a percentage or something. I mean, I can work something,
You know, I know that I've been approached that they want the city to still be involved financially, okay? Because they look forward to that, and they don't know if they're gonna be that successful. So I know that I have been approached that please keep the city involved, you know, with their contributions and things like that, because they do appreciate that. So if we can help and still maintain a communication with them, you're right, this is the year, you know, just for discussion. It may not go anywhere, but then again, who knows?
Right, because I think because of having this piece of Chevron land, we moved it, it's a different situation now. We have
Right.
a haunted house, but see, the haunted house and the instance Steve was talking about, or having the Oktoberfest, those are for profits, those are private entities.
That's different.
Their need, it's different, and there really should be a policy.
Right,
I agree.
yeah.
You know, if they're selling to vendors to come to their event and to use that property, there needs to be a policy. When it's a non-for-profit, it should be treated differently. So I think maybe we do have a route we can use this year to develop what the proper policy is, both for non-for-profits and for-profits. And I think they should be treated differently. But I think because we have this Chevron property, it's I don't know, it's a new experience for all of us.
It is. So I know that Tangled Roots, I think the group wanted to have a conversation, Ben, about like what worked, what didn't work. I mean, obviously, losing 25,000 is a lot, but it's also marketing. I don't know if they feel like that's worth it, you know, a marketing campaign in sense. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but I think having that conversation with them. And then, you know, how does that work with something like that, knowing that like, well, now we have to rent the space from the city for an additional $5,000, right? It's like, there's gonna be a place where the marketing is not worth it. So, yet we all got a really cool festival that we didn't have to do anything at it for, right? So, let's follow up with that conversation, Ben. I think if we could set up some time with those folks and hear what worked, what didn't work. And then, I'm sure, there's a couple chamber members watching tonight and such, so it's like, I know they've had some discussions, then perhaps, in an upcoming meeting, we could have them come out and give their peace of mind, right, what their thoughts are on all this. And then, because I think we've all been good partners together with our organizations, and so we'll let them hear the pros and cons in their minds of it, and then we can make a good decision after hearing from everybody instead of just dictating.
To me, I mean, just one more thing on this. It seems like when we do our budgeting, we commit at the very beginning of the year to give so much to the summer art series. We decide to donate so much to this, donate to that. If we have a history of donating $20,000 to $25,000 to the chamber for Old Canal Days, basically that's what it is. That's what the question is. Are we going to continue to donate $25,000? Now, if we have to donate over $25,000, if overtime got crazy or something, then I would say, yeah, now we need to get reimbursed or something. But basically, this is a question is, do we want to continue to donate this kind of money to run Old Canal Days? It's not about profit and loss, in my opinion. It's about, are we sponsoring this event or not? And to what level do we want to sponsor it? I think you confused me a little bit with the 45,000 or whatever, but if we're paying 20 to 25,000 every year, if that's our donation,
Yeah.
then come to me at the budget at the beginning of the year and say, JR, are you willing to give Chamber $25,000? Yeah, instead of writing them a check here, we're basically paying for
Right,
overtime.
what I would say is also,
Which we can write off.
now it's a larger event space, what if Old Canal Days expands? Are we then having more overtime with PW?
Right.
Overtime with
You could cap the support, I guess. You could say, well, every year we budget 20 grand in overtime, and if they spend 22, then they get invoiced for 2 grand. Whatever the budget commitment is.
I would be
each
more
year.
comfortable with us setting
I like
an
that.
exact number, either the 20 or 25 of what we donate to that event. And then if it does go over, like you said, if this event becomes bigger and bigger, and we're now all of a sudden doing $30,000 or $35,000 worth of overtime, then I think we have to come back and look at it. But other than that, I think it's more of a question, are we donating to this
You
event?
said we don't
I like that.
budgeted
I like
25
that.
grand for this?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I budgeted 35, but that does include the other overtime
shows,
for
yeah.
other events we have.
Okay, I mean, and for as long as I've been doing this job, we've all decided that it's worth donating to events, and we do it via overtime, right? And personal volunteerism, thank you. And so,
Frozen from those tanks.
I know, those were cold going in there. And that actually is not a small point. I mean, our staff was amazing at, festivals. You guys work hard out there, and of course, the council members, so.
My wife was starting to wonder who Annette was down there. Talking on the phone a lot.
Down to the Mickey Mouse Club in that.
But, yeah, fun to talk about an event when it's sunny and warm. Now it's cold.
Okay, well, let's
Well,
then, are you
Thank
guys
thank
okay?
you
We'll-
much for just
Okay.
having a discussion about
Oh,
it.
no, yeah, thank you for bringing it back up. So we'll follow up with Tangled Roots and find out what was going on with that one, and then let's look at, we'll have further discussion with the chamber and hear their thoughts, and I think that's a good next step.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Larry, for bringing it up.
I just have a suggestion. Taste of Lockport. Every restaurant, I think, should.
We have a restaurant week coming
They
up.
do do it. Oh, you mean at the canal
At the
days?
Canal Days. No, I know
Right.
that. But I think at the Canal Days, people need, so.
You know my motto, Joanne, a voice of change is a voice in charge.
Yeah.
You're now in charge of the Taste of Lockport. Yeah.
Taste of Lockport booth, hosted by Joanne.
I'm talking about Canal Days.
I vote her in.
I will mention it to,
Unanimous. Joanne's in charge.
if she's not watching, I will mention it to Annette.
All right, thanks, everyone. All right, what do we got? CA1.
Yes, thank you. Mayor and members of the council, tonight, CA1 is to a request to approve a resolution 22014. This is a IDOT requirement for a grant application that we're submitting. They ask us to pass a resolution in regards to the project, that we would support it if the grant is awarded. These are grant funds that are 80/20. Somebody had called me and asked me about, wow, we're gonna spend $2 million. I said, no, we're only gonna spend 400,000, maybe a little more with a couple enhancements. So 80/20 is a great grant to get. But this is for the new avenue. If you recall, about a year, almost, I looked at a memo, it was February of last year that we were looking at a roundabout. Thank you for moving the slide around. There's the existing conditions there. You know, and we looked at a roundabout, it didn't quite fit. But, you know, the topography is off there, the geometry's not great when you're trying to turn. So there's from the study of the roundabout, we came to a merged slip lane is what we're calling it, where the traffic southbound is able to continue on without having to stop. There you go. Now, we did include the room for a signal. We won't be able to install the signal day one because IDOT requires certain traffic counts and requirements, and we're thinking that if Chevron builds out and you get a new avenue extension there, that will more than meet those warrants at that time. So we definitely want to include it in the design. But right now, I didn't want to yeah, bless you, whoever that was. I didn't want to oversell the project that, you know, this is really just a new geometry design to the intersection and the slip lane to allow the southbound traffic to continue on. And at a later date, hopefully we can get a signal. But again, right now, we're just looking to say, hey, this is something that we're willing to commit 20% of the project to if the IDOT awards us the grant on it. Certainly happy to take your questions and get some feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad we've been trying to be proactive. I mean, we've always been trying to find ways to get that east-west traffic moving better, right? Knowing that this Bruce Road, Caton Farm Bridge thing seems to be a unicorn. So, yeah, being able to have that people using the 135th Street Bridge to cross and come down, just, you know, having them be able to flow south easier is, I think, would be very beneficial. So this is just for us to like start working towards a grant is what we're asking.
Correct, yeah, they ask if, you know, if awarded, are you gonna spend the money? And we're saying, yes, we would commit to our 400,000 and match on this grant if they give us $2 million. So, actual cost would be determined later. Brent and his group would get into it with the engineers and everything. And we've had a few conference calls with IDOT on it. They're actually supporting the change. They understand the intersection's not great for them, and they really love it when we spend federal and local dollars on state roads.
When we first started this, the roundabout, it was for basically two reasons. Maybe to add a little beauty as you came into downtown, because roundabouts are nice looking. And the other thing was to help get trucks out of downtown to hopefully get them north, that, you know, that all of a sudden they're stuck on New Avenue and we want to get them back going north on 171st, or Route 151. Is the design here, is that, are we going to accomplish that for trucks? I know we're designing it with a light, but will that make it, I don't want to just make something real pretty just to make, you know, spend a lot of money on merging cars.
I think the flow will be much better. Brent can answer probably a little better in regards to the way it's all aligned, but I mean.
Yeah, let me expound on it though before you answer, because I agree with JR. So one of the pluses with the roundabout, because I was finding, you know, trucks downtown, because they missed the, you know, business park behind them, and all of a sudden they found themselves downtown.
Yeah, the
and they
idea
didn't
to
turn
go
around.
back,
It was
yeah.
like, a roundabout had this idea of like, dude, if they get this far, like, oh gosh, I missed my entrance to the business park. Now, fortunately, I could just go turn right around here and go back. Does this intersection allow you to make a right instead? Is it wide enough to be able to end back up to 171 and then get to 135th Street and get back that way? Not that these guys do that. Usually they don't really make a decision until they're sitting in downtown and then go through the neighborhood. But if somebody realizes that I went too far and I need to turn around, could they make a right in that wide curve there. Is that wide enough for a truck to do
Yes.
that turn?
Yeah, that's actually why it's, you can see that it's pretty wide, and there's also some striping, some diagonal striping. That's actually pavement. That's essentially just there because of the trucks. So if you're heading southbound or kind of southwestbound on State, and you wanted to go north on New Avenue back towards 135th, you absolutely could. Getting back to your question on the flows, essentially what this does is it helps traffic heading southbound on New Avenue just continue out onto State Street. So it's a really, it's an improvement to traffic flow. It does significantly improve the traffic.
It's a safety improvement, really. That's why IDOT would grant the money to it. And your signage question, I was able to pick up one of these lots on the west side. I purchased a lot over there, so there's plenty of room to put a monument down there. I have had that in mind. We didn't budget a monument this year, but I will next year, or whenever we get this one going, because I was gonna put it down here, and I didn't want to put a monument down here and then rip it out when we were talking about this. So we've acquired some additional property rights in this area to also add beautification and a welcome monument sign, and then the overall geometrics are much safer, so. And hopefully, I think we all agree that the signal is the best thing for traffic management, and I'm pretty hopeful that we'll be able to get that achieved. You know, if it's not, again, this construction wouldn't be till 24, 25, so who knows what the traffic counts may be by then. We may qualify for it and get it included all in the grant at that time anyway.
All right, any other questions, friends?
I just want to ask, has the satellite people been notified that, of the routes that the trucks should be taking? 'Cause I know they were getting lost and going into neighborhoods. Has that all been corrected? Because I know for.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, you're talking like,
yeah, that's an ongoing request.
GPSs and
Yeah,
stuff?
Yeah,
GPS,
trying.
satellites.
you know, our officers are, I think, able.
He's waiting,
Yeah.
nodding his
You
head.
chomping at the bit? Go ahead.
The answer is yes. We've been working on that. We've done a lot of progress with them. We've worked with the GPS companies, the major, the players in that field, and we've worked out all the routing. The problem we're still seeing is that the truck drivers sometimes will not use the GPS application designed for trucks. They're using the ones for passenger vehicles, and we're still having them go off route because they're using things like Waze that wasn't designed for overweight trucks. But as far as GPS goes, yes, if they use the proper platform, we won't have that problem, but it's when they don't.
So, as far as that goes, in fact, I just had a meeting yesterday with Hugh from the Will County Governmental League. I asked him, it's like, we need to get it on our agenda to start pursuing it. We're gonna have to do it at a federal level. So, he's gonna set up some meetings with our federal legislators, and that is to do this. I've said,
Shouldn't it be also with the companies that these trucks are driving?
yeah, that's fine, but you gotta remember, a lot of these guys are independent, right? And they're just like, and they get down their phone and they use, Google Maps. And so what I was trying to push is that this idea of, users like, or providers like Google Maps and such that are like, Rich was saying, are for, generally cars. It's like, look, you guys got an icon on there for walking, for the train, for cars. Can you get one on there for trucks? And you guys can access all the truck routes. They all come from the DOTs in different states. And I think, I had John Connor reach out to Google one time. He said he had a connection there, and he's like, they're like, no, right? But I'm like, okay, we have to go at a higher level, because in my mind, it's a life safety thing. It's like, these people rely on this. We've thrown maps out, right? Google's taken over the market for how you navigate. Good for you, but you have some responsibility. Because, and the information's there for DOT truck routes. It's a matter of putting an icon on there that says, if you're a truck, press that button, and then you can know what your routes are. And I don't think that's a hard ask. And so, but it's gonna have to come from a federal level with a little pressure, because just a state legislator and a mayor, it doesn't really go very far. So I've asked the Governmental League that we could start lobbying on a higher level. So I just had that meeting yesterday, in fact.
Yeah. The other thing, it's not really shown in here, is there's been some discussion with IDOT about sidewalk accommodations in this, and originally we were definitely on New Avenue, no sidewalks, it doesn't really lead anywhere, but we may need to create some sidewalk between the two streets there that are shown that will continue to go towards Archer Avenue, towards 355, because we have a bike path plan that shows an accommodation there eventually as things develop. I mean, it'll be a long-term plan and connection, but again, the 20% match was $400,000. I was asking to make sure we consider a $500,000 budget request in the future. And the project has about 20%, about $300,000 in it for contingency. So we think we're gonna be able to make some type of pedestrian accommodation between those two streets. But we will just stay on the east side of State Street, not adding any pedestrian accommodations on New Avenue. Doesn't lead anywhere, so. You can use the I&M Canal to get up to 135th anyway, so.
Anything else on this? You guys good with consent?
Thank you very much.
Good up.
All right.
CA2.
CA2, thank you, Mayor. This is also a resolution. We like to approve things by resolution. Easier for Sunny to find when I ask her questions about it. It's a resolution 22015. This is a contract with V3 to help provide a Phase 1 engineering services for the proposed pedestrian crossing at Division and Cedar Ridge, also known as 167th. This map, there's a lot going on in this map, but I just wanted to show you just kind of a bigger picture. The proposed path that this would involve is right there, kind of connecting Cedar Ridge to Victoria's Crossing, but we really have to engage the road profile from Cedar all the way to Silo Ridge, pretty much. The county wants to kind of widen that road a little bit because of the crosswalks that we want to put in. We also had a request from Alderman Mark Loebs about a traffic study involved with this too that we can evaluate at the time and work with the county. The county engineer has expressed interest in co-sharing the application with us, which will help us on our points and awards, but also might lower our cost commitment on this project to as little as 10%. So I think it's definitely worth continuing and getting the Phase 1 done. So you also see that Silo Ridge is being built, and they have a bike path connection to Victoria Crossings connection, which we'll be able to use this new connection, get through Cedar Ridge, and then don't forget, we're building the smaller one over by B&B Foods this summer that we approved last year. It's already been contracted and leaded, which will let all that connect to the soon-to-be constructed VMT. So it's really a wonderful connection for a lot of our residents to be able to get to the VMT, which is gonna be a really nice new bike path with the Forest Preserve. It starts construction later this year, so. Again, this is we wouldn't build this without a grant, so it's always good to do the Phase 1 engineering first. It really helps us with our grant applications. It'd be an ITEP, probably STP or ITEP grant in the future, probably for a 2024 project. We'll update the engineer's opinion of probable costs. Brent calls it an EOPC. I never say it right. Oh, thank you. Moving the slides here. So here's another, little showing of what it may look like here that with the ped crossing and a little bit wider road profile. I think I've got one more on here. Oh, that's a bike path. I guess that's all I've got. Yes.
May I ask, so
Which one?
on that pedestrian crossing, are there going to be flashing lights so that cars can see that?
Yeah. If you look on the left side of your screen, you see a little yellow sign there with the lights on top. So that will be installed. There'll be a push button included. Just like we have added at 8th Street, and we will add to 11th Street once we get the streetscaping done this year.
So we're trying to make it as safe as possible.
Right. And that's why I understand the speed request. I mean, the county, that's a pretty good road. I don't know if we call that a collector or whatever we call it, Brent, but it's got a pretty high speed limit on it. And we do get requests to slow it down. And then people will complain that we enforce it too much. So it's a catch-22.
All right, any questions? Good with the consent on this?
Great, thank you very much.
Grazie. All right, Lance, what do you got?
Good evening, this is the Thorntons. We are seeking approval of the final development plans for the new gas station located at southeast corner of 159th Street and Gauger Road. This is related to Resolution 22013. It is consistent with the approved concept plan, shows a 4.5 acre subject property. This is the site plan on your screen. You can see where the septic system is, the canopy in the pump area, the stormwater ponds. diesel lanes in their canopy, the convenience store, and a dumpster enclosure there to the south. These are some of the architectural elevations of the front. We have had them modify these to include real brick and real stone, so that's an added benefit. This is the rear elevation, otherwise seen from the south. These are the east and the west elevations. The one on the bottom will be the one that's visible from Gauger Road. The other one is only visible from the Michelson property to the east. And then the canopy structure, some of you have probably seen these new Thorntons. I've seen quite a few of them popping up. There's a new one in Joliet that's down on Collins Street, 1 and 2 in Romeoville. So they're definitely rolling out their brand, and this is consistent with that. These are the diesel stations there. The Plan Zoning Commission met on January 8th. Public hearing was not required. The applicant was present. He tried to get out of his subdivision tonight, but couldn't make it, and so he had to turn around and go back home, but he is available via text if there are any questions that I or Brent can't answer. We are requesting approval. They recommended the following, that you approve the resolution for a fuel station in the C3 zoning district. There were 4 conditions of that. The first 2 have been addressed already. The last 2 are our typical requirements as it relates to guarantees for the public and private site improvements and the engineering review and inspection fees needing to be submitted. That's it.
What is the approximate starting time for them to start digging?
I think that they would like to start as soon as the spring hits and they can actually start digging, so.
And is it over a year project or?
Oh, I don't believe it will be.
Yep.
I think it'll probably just be maybe 4 or 5 months.
Yep. And
Or so.
there's actually, we do have the tax sharing agreement that they
Right.
have to open up in a certain time period. So
Yes, that's
they
true.
are facing a deadline to
Mhm.
open
When
up.
I get started.
They want to get
Yeah.
started.
All right, everybody good? Any questions?
I had a couple things I'd ask. Brent, on page, it's C7.2 is the drawing of the ADA ramps, and they're calling out fiberglass detectable warning plates that needs to be changed, so you need to change that up. My question is, I wasn't thrilled to see that we're using a septic tank. Where is the nearest sewer? What do we have in place about them attaching to sewer eventually? Who is gonna, since we don't do any type of septic stuff, who is gonna maintain it? Who are we designing it to? What specs?
So the septic tank is governed by the Will County Health Department, so it would have to be sufficient to meet the needs. We do realize that the ideal is to get them connected, but the closest connection is 2,000 feet away. Was it 2,000 feet away, right?
I think it's at,
It's like 2183.
I think it's at 163rd and Gauger.
Well, I understand, maybe we can't run sewer all the way down there, but I would hope if this takes off, I mean, eventually in time, we might have a sewer line running there, so.
Yeah, the agreement
Yeah,
states that
yeah.
if it's within 250 feet,
250 feet.
they
so-
have to add
Well,
on.
then I would like to see them, as part of the design on this, to at least stub out a sewer towards Gauger or something for future, I mean, once they
Yeah,
get close
I'm
enough.
not too pleased that this would be incorporated, brand-new development, incorporated with a septic tank. And so they need to put something forward that says, we will connect to any future sewer extension.
Yeah, we did, so the annexation agreement that governs the development of that property states that they have to connect to the sewer connection when it is available. I did issue an opinion letter to them that at this time, it is not considered deemed to be available according to the Public Works Director because it's too far away. If they come within 250 feet, it will be considered to be available. So they are on notice when it is available that they would have to connect. It could be a future development south of the property. They end up extending the line, they do have to connect. They also have to connect if their septic tank does not meet their current need, or it breaks down, or there's other issues that they cannot comply with the Will County Health Department. So there are mechanisms in place. They can't forever in perpetuity have that septic tank. If they end up all of a sudden expanding and they're having some type of issues with the usage, they do have to, connect when the connection is available.
Brent, do you think there's wisdom in like if, JR mentioned stubbing it out, like if you ran a sewer line while they have the ground all torn up and, it's easy to dig ditches, to run that line to the south of the property and then stub it off, is that wisdom, or is that like, if it sits there for 5 years, it's useless, it's just gonna have to get pulled out again anyway, like, do you have a thought on that?
Sure. I think the best thing for us to do is to evaluate where we realistically think that this could come. So it could come from the east, and that would be if the property, it's the.
Michelson's.
And
Wade Lights.
Oh,
Yes,
Wade Lights property,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, thank you. So Wade Lights property to the north, there is potential, if that were to be developed, that sewer would have to be extended to the north, and then it would, that would be the access. The other, obviously, the other location would be along Gauger. So what I would like to do is realistically sit down and think about what we feel like is the best option, and then we can talk about that connection. What I would not want to do or would not suggest is putting a connection in to Gauger, and then we find out that Wade Light would be the way to go. So I guess, I know everybody's thinking Gauger, but it may be Wade Light's property first. So I do think there is some, some reasonable request in that, and
Can
I
we
do
stub in
believe.
both directions?
Well, I don't know about that, but I do believe that, I think that there's a reasonable request there, and it might just be a manhole. It might just be that manhole that's gonna be the future connection, and then when the time comes, the pipe can be connected.
Yeah, but I think he's also asking, like, they're gonna be stub PVC underground, I mean, that's fine, you don't have to worry about any life on that,
It would not see any flow, so it would be completely, a separate standalone pipe, essentially, pipe and manhole that would not be touched. So there is some reasonable, it's a reasonable request. I caution anybody to say it's going to Gauger. I don't know that it's going to Gauger. I just want to make sure we really take a look at it.
Okay.
So is it unreasonable then to ask them to be prepared for the, for the line to be ready to be hooked up when the time comes?
We
Yeah,
did.
that's what we're talking
We
about.
did.
Oh, you
The
did, okay.
agreement addresses that. The agreement states that when the connection is available, and that's the interpretation.
Right,
What
so
is
I'm thinking you
what
do
is
it now.
available? So,
So there will be a charge for a connection, correct, at that point?
Oh, yeah.
yes. Mhm. Yep.
The only concern I have about, or the other reason I like the idea of maybe putting a stub at Gauger is that the VMT bike path is gonna go right along there, and so I'd hate to disturb that, to put a sewer in, 5 years from now if we've already built the bike path, but.
Bike path will be resurfaced by then anyway. So.
Can I ask then, okay, so say in the future, they hook up to the main line for the sewer. What happens to the septic tank? Do they have to empty that out and close it up somehow so that that stuff that,
They would have to decommission that completely. It would be like somebody coming from a well to our system. We do not allow commingling of systems. It would be a very similar situation.
Was that Joanne's putting a request to get it? Can I have that if they're not gonna use it anymore?
So she's running old canal days, and she's
And,
making.
yeah, she's collecting septic tanks.
When this originally came up, it was, since they don't have a car wash or heavy water use other than the bathrooms and restrooms, they can design this septic to accommodate their needs, and it's up to the owners and operators to maintain it and clean it and empty it, and yeah, the county
but I'm
will
just wondering
take care of it.
The responsibility when the time comes, I guess,
Mhm.
we want them to be.
They'll be required to
responsible
connect,
and do
no
the
doubt.
proper help.
Yep.
They would have to comply with all requirements
Yep.
from the Wood County Health Department on closing it, and, yeah.
All right, my friends, if there's nothing else, you guys, you wanna do consent, or what's, opinion?
I'd like to do an action.
Action, it is. All right. Page 2. What else you got here, Brent?
All right, so this evening, couple items on the agenda for the Public Works and Engineering Department. First item, this is our standard annual MFT fund allocation, so this is us telling IDOT that we are going to utilize our MFT funds and we're going to use them for these items. We have a couple items on there that we always have, and that is our salt. We also have crack filling and pavement marking. So those are annual programs. We always pay for those through MFT. Salt, $141,624. Crack filling is $50,000, and then pavement marking, $100,000. Our paving program this year, we are going to be utilizing MFT money for that, and that's $2.3 million. That is for our Farrell Road from southern limits to the northern limits of the city, and then also 151st Street. I caveat that with 151st Street, we are looking at some potential developments in the area, also our well, and so there may be, we might hold off on a couple sections if that makes sense to work together with everybody in the area. But this request is to strictly allocate that money. We're like I said, we're telling IDOT, we submit at the conclusion of the year what we've spent, and this is our, like I said, first step. So we're asking for council's consideration for this evening. This is resolution number 22-011, and this would be approving the cost, dedication, and eligibility for the MFT program to IDOT.
All right, any questions? We okay with the consent on that? Okay. And then what do you got for the last item there?
Last item is this is the Kelvin Grove rear yard water main. So this is something that I know we've talked about a little bit at council. I've also talked with a few different aldermen and women about this project. Great project. This is the project that will take our water main that is currently in rear yards and we'll move it to the front yards. And then with that, we have to provide new services. So the services that we're providing, we have to get into people's homes. So there is a lot of interaction with the residents. We've reached out to the residents. We have, we've sent out mailers, we've sent out flyers, we've done door hangers. So we've done a lot of work to try to work with the residents over there, and we'll continue that. This project, $180,000 is what our contract is. I know we budgeted quite a bit more. We budgeted $440,000 because of the hands-on nature of this project. What we're going to do is we're going to supplement the work with Chamblin. So Chamblin will be out there, but we're going to supplement with our own staff to offset those costs. We're not changing anything. We're not reducing scope. We're not reducing the project. It just happened to be, like I said, we're able to offset some of this time with our own internal staff. So we're asking for the approval of resolution number 22-012, approving Chamblin and Associates to provide Phase 3 engineering services for the Kelvin Grove rear yard water main replacement project.
All right, questions, concerns? All right, you good with consent then? All right, me friends, anything for new business? Then we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, and the
These two.
whole side here. So we got Joanne and Christina. Lish.
Larry's
me.
voted. Larry voted.
That's a vote. All right, all in favor?
That's his yes.
Aye. Yeah.
All right, very good. All right, roll call, please.
Got it. Saban. Bartleson.
Here?
Lobes.
Here.
Bergbauer.
Here.
Galogly.
Here.
Schreiber.
Here.
Karas.
Here.
Kostecki. Here. We have a quorum.
All right, looking for a motion to have a consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Mark and Renee, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so tonight's consent agenda is looking for a motion, or rather, looking to approve Committee of the Whole meeting minutes from January 19th, regular city council meeting minutes from January 19th, our payroll period ending January 9th and the 23rd, bills through January 25th. There's the IDOT Section 130 grant agreement with the Illinois Central Railroad Company, CN, which was Resolution 22008. And then lastly, there's the 6-month review of the executive session meeting minutes. So we're looking for a motion to approve.
Motion.
Is it Larry and Christina? And we'll do a roll call, please.
Okay, Saban.
Yes.
Bartleson.
Yes?
Lobes.
Yes.
Bergbauer.
Yes.
Galogly.
Yes.
Schreiber.
Yes.
Karas.
Yes.
And Kostecki.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Lance, you want to talk about our custom cabinet fabrication shop?
Sure, this is a continuation from the,
Sure. We have a motion to approve. We can approve it before, it doesn't matter, but it's best to do it in front. So a motion to approve.
Here, yes, second.
All right, JR.
First, whatever.
Anyone second that?
Second.
Second by Larry. Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right.
this is a continuation of the case that was at our last meeting. It's basically a cabinet shop that's looking to go into the building that is directly south of the Lockport Promenade. It used to be the House of Tools. It's just north of the car care, basically car rebuilding center on Archer Avenue. I'll take any questions if you have them still unresolved from the last meeting.
All good? All right, then we'll just go right to a roll call then, please.
You got it. Saban.
Yes.
Bartleson.
Yes?
Lobes.
Yes.
Bergbauer.
Yes.
Galogly.
Yes.
Schreiber.
Yes.
Karas.
Yes.
Kostecki.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, fantastical. Nothing else, then we can close this meeting out. Looking for a motion.
Motion.
All right, Larry, seconded by Joanne, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,